A lot of people don't know that the Philippines actually has its own blood sausage. Today I'm going to show you how to make a recipe that hails from the northern provinces of the country, where they make a dish called Pinuneg that I think is very special, unique, and delicious. Korea, Japan, France, Germany, England, they all have their versions of blood sausages that are fairly celebrated, that you will find in various pubs, restaurants, brasseries, bistros when you're in those countries. I think it's a shame that something as delicious and as unique as our own Pinuneg, our own blood sausage, mainly made around Benguet or the mountain provinces, isn't as popular. Now, apologies for this setup. We're currently working on our new studio kitchen set, so we'll show you some shots of that so you get an idea of how we change sets over here at FEATR. But we're going to be shooting this here in our short set, so if you hear kind of like construction happening in the background, we can't do anything about it. We're currently doing that. But I wanted to do this video as an introduction to the whole Baguio series that we're about to put out on FEATR. It was a big undertaking in January of this year. We all went as a team. I think we were about 10 people that went to Baguio over a couple of days to shoot various stories around the area. I've heard of Pinuneg and our blood sausage a few times before. I tried it a few times before as well, but never really attempted to make it. And when I went back this time around while we were shooting the other stories, I thought it'd be really cool to do it in a home setting and see how I would personally change it. As a lot of you know, I'm half Filipino, I'm half French, and in France we have a boudin noir, which is one of my favorite dishes, so I wanted to apply some of those techniques that I've learned making boudin in the past and applying that with the technicalities or the ingredients that are used to make a Pinuneg. First thing we want to do is boil all these lovely pig parts. So this is kind of like our first boil. We have some pig face and ears, and then we have some offal here. We're using some intestines. You can use any other type of offal that you want or have access to. To that, we're gonna add some vinegar. This is really just to help clean everything out and to kind of remove that awful smell. So these are buried in salt, right? Because when you're making or when you're using casing like this for sausages, it's really important to get it as fresh as possible. So this way it kind of keeps longer in the market. So this is what we find in the Philippines. You can sometimes find them fresh also. If they're extra dehydrated, you'll then have to kind of steep it in water longer. But all we need to do now is kind of rinse everything. So the amount that we have here will actually make close to 40 to 60 pieces of your regular sausages. So a boudin noir is usually made with ground pork fat, to which they add obviously pork blood that is then stuffed into a casing, boiled, and then seared with some butter, usually served with caramelized apples, and it's beautiful. How is Pinuneg different from that? Not extremely different. The big difference is instead of ground pork or ground meat, the whole point of this sausage is to show kind of the thriftiness of the culture. And so instead of ground meat, they're using lots of ground offal. So they're using things like pig head, intestines, whatever's kind of left over from the pig that is not being used for other dishes. And that's boiled and then made really soft and then chopped up into small pieces, added with onions, kind of like a boudin noir as well. And then again, stuffed in some pig intestine casings to make those sausages, which are then boiled. And the way I've had it before were mostly boiled. I don't think I've tried seared versions of them, but today I'm going to show you a seared version of that as well. So really simple, just like a boudin noir, we're going to chop up and mince lots of red onions. The idea here is the onions will really give us that balance of acidity that's needed to counterbalance the richness of all the pork chopped bits that are in there, as well as kind of like that heavy pork blood flavor and texture. So you want something really nice and small. We're actually going to chop this up further to give it an even finer mince. Sorry, that brought back a lot of memories. The reason why I'm saying this is an inauthentic recipe is because I really don't feel like I'm the right person to tell you that it's an authentic dish, simply because Pinuneg kind of has a lot of history behind it. There's a whole ritual when butchering a pig that's really important, and it's really tied to their local culture that I would never kind of claim to be part of or appropriate. But in essence, all the ingredients that we're using here are very traditional. So now that we've basically cleaned all our pig parts that are there, what we're gonna do is, usually you'd boil this for 3-4 hours until it's really tender soft, as if you were making kind of like a seasick or something, but I'm gonna put it in a pressure cooker for about 45 minutes. And to that, we're gonna add some aromatics, so some black pepper, some ginger, just cover that in some hot water. Time to get bloody. So obviously blood is a massive component to this dish. Let's taste it first to see if it's fresh. It's really important when you're making boudin or any blood sausage, you need to get the blood on that day itself and use it that day itself. You see it as it falls, it kind of clumps up a little bit. So you don't really need to do this, and I don't think most people do when they're making Pinuneg, but I like to blend it to aerate it a bit. Ooh, it smells like blood. And then we're gonna add a little bit of vinegar in there to help make sure it doesn't coagulate. Take this out of the pressure cooker. That's the intestine and the ear, just to show you how soft it is. Should be able to cut it through quite easily. And then just like your onions, we're gonna go ahead and mince that. Next, we're gonna add all our onions. Add in some garlic, some pepper, and some salt. I'm gonna do that again. The first one broke. So really also, especially if you're using intestines that are really thin like this, really important to take your time with it. What happened here is that's the construction I was talking about. What happened here was the chunky bits, so the pork and the onions kind of clumped up at the top, and the blood is falling down below, so it didn't really work out. So I'm gonna do it again, take my time, go a bit slower this time. Sausage making is always going to be a little tricky, especially if you don't do it often. Oh no. Okay. If you get air pockets at any point, have like something nearby you can basically pop the skin with, so you make sure you don't have any air bubbles. This is a messy business, guys. Make space, take your time, and believe. Have faith in your skills, in yourself. Time to close it up, and then we're gonna go ahead and remove all those pesky air pockets that are in there. Now all we have to do is cook it. So you want to cook this for about 20 minutes. So in 20 minutes, it'll be fully cooked. So what I'm going to do is cover it, And then I'm gonna let that cook very gently for about 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, it's fully cooked. You can leave it a further 20 or 30 minutes. I find that the flavor just intensifies and gets a little bit better. You know it's ready when you prick it, no more blood is coming out of the casing. Simple as that. So this might sound strange to some, serving a Pinuneg with strawberries and tomatoes, and I might get in trouble for it. But honestly, when I'm making Filipino food, I like to also kind of just express my own creativity in the food, and I think that's how you kind of push food forward and experiment with it and share kind of like your passion for cooking. Tomatoes, you have some really beautiful tomatoes grown around Baguio. You have some beautiful strawberries grown around Baguio. So it makes sense for me to kind of use these flavors in this dish. In France, a boudin noir is usually served with some caramelized apples. So that's kind of like the inspiration here, is the mix of tomatoes and strawberries should really go well with kind of like the heavy flavor of the Pinuneg that we have. It looks like it's about ready to cook, so all we're gonna do is put that into a pan with very low heat, because now that it's cooked fully, we wanna be very careful with the skin. We don't want it to kind of crack. And we're gonna throw in our tomatoes and our strawberries while that's happening. Now again, not traditional at all, but I think it's great to kind of look at the local produce that is around a certain tradition or culture and kind of borrow from there to put something that maybe doesn't feel very local, but also truly is in its DNA in terms of the produce that it uses. Time to try it. Let's get a nice cross section here. Perfect bite. Pinuneg, strawberry, tomato. That's surprising, delicious. You get none of the bloodiness, obviously. Obviously blood has a certain flavor to it. But it's delicious. That would like mashed potatoes or even just with rice would be really good. If you want to make a blood sausage at home, this is a recipe you can use. It turned out really well for us. You can make big rounds wheels if you want, or you can kind of make individual sausages as well. And all it takes is just a little bit of love, a little bit of care, and you end up with a delicious tasting dish. So I hope this kind of opened your eyes a little bit to some other cuisines that are present in the Philippines, and there's so many to cover. And hopefully you watch our whole Baguio series. If you check all our social media on FEATR IG, on our YouTube and Facebook, you'll see all our headers will be changed to Baguio themed, because that's the season, quote unquote, that we're going into. And over the next few weeks, we're gonna be dropping lots of Baguio-centric videos that I hope all of you in the community will really appreciate and share with your friends that are from there, and share with the Filipino diaspora that's around the world that kind of misses the Philippines, and just anyone who's interested and curious about Filipino cuisine and culture. I'll see you guys there.